The Lord be with you. And welcome to our second segment for this third week of Lent, where I bring to you 4 tips on how to make a good confession. And the first tip is to humble yourself. We have to pray for that gift of humility so that we can humble ourselves and pray for the desire to know the ways we have offended God. Because if we are not in that state of humility, we do not see our sins. We may see our actions but don't consider them as sin. It's only with a very humble heart that we can really come to recognize our sins, and that cannot come without prayer and asking for that gift of humility. Secondly, understand the seriousness of sin. We have to understand that sin is no joke. Sin separates us from God. And if we are separated from God, of course we cannot be in communion with Him. And therefore, God's grace helps us to restore the right relationship with Him. And if we recognize the seriousness of sin, we'll also recognize the grace that God gives us in order to reunite with Him, to reconnect with Him, to come back into communion with Him. And if we don't recognize the seriousness of our sin, we won't recognize the importance of confession. So any sin, whether mortal or venial, must be taken seriously. Thirdly, we have to examine our consciences. When something is vitally important as confession, we should take the time to do it well. This is not coming, in my view, confession happening and you just go to confession without first preparing yourself, examining the ways that you have sinned. And the cluster has given us a little booklet, how to make a sincere confession, that you can use as a guide in order for you to make a good and sincere confession. So use it. And if you don't have one, the next time you go to Mass, ask for one. But we must also go into the confessional with a sense and a desire to change. Because if we don't go in there with a desire to change, then we will walk out like water on a duck's back. Nothing affects us. And we must embrace the grace, because when we go to confession, grace is being poured out. And the grace of forgiveness is what has been poured out in confession. So we must approach confession with true contrition. We must really be truly sorry for our sin and have a desire to sin no more. It is when we begin to experience true contrition and work hard to avoid offending God, that's when we begin to receive grace after grace after grace. And that's what the sacrament of reconciliation does for us. So my brothers and sisters, let's develop a habit of going to confession. And confession is made very available in our cluster for this Lenten period. So go to the one that is appearing, next to you in your community. And remember, you can go to have a confession anywhere confession is available. May God bless you.